The forest was silent, save for the occasional rustle of leaves in the wind. The moon hung low, casting an eerie silver glow over the trees, their twisted branches clawing at the sky like skeletal fingers. I shouldn't have been there. No one ever went into the Blackwood Forest after dark. The locals whispered about it. Cursed ground, they said, where the veil between worlds was thin. But I had no choice. The wounded creature I'd found on the outskirts of the woods needed help, and I couldn't just leave her there. She was unlike anything I'd ever seen. Her skin was a deep, iridescent blue, shimmering faintly in the moonlight. Her hair, long and silvery, seemed to float around her as if caught in an invisible current. Her eyes, though, those were what truly unnerved me. They were large, luminous, and entirely black, like pools of ink reflecting the void itself. She was humanoid, but her features were alien, her limbs too long, her fingers tipped with sharp, claw-like nails. And she was hurt, badly. A deep gash ran across her side, oozing a strange, glowing fluid that smelled faintly of ozone. I didn't know what she was, but I couldn't leave her to die. So, against my better judgment, I carried her into the forest, following a faint, almost imperceptible trail that seemed to lead deeper into the trees. The air grew colder with every step, and the silence became oppressive, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. I could feel eyes on me, though I saw nothing. The shadows seemed to shift and writhe, just out of sight. After what felt like hours, I found it, a clearing bathed in an unnatural light. At its center stood a massive, ancient tree, its trunk twisted and gnarled, its roots sprawling out like the tentacles of some great beast. The air here was thick with a strange energy, making my skin prickle and my hair stand on end. I laid the creature down at the base of the tree, unsure of what to do next. Her breathing was shallow, her glowing blood pooling beneath her. That's when I heard it. A low, guttural growl that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The ground beneath me trembled, and the tree's roots began to move, coiling and uncoiling like living things. I stumbled back, my heart pounding in my chest, as the creature's eyes snapped open. She sat up with a fluid, unnatural grace, her head tilting to one side as she regarded me with those unsettling black eyes. "You saved me," she said, her voice a melodic yet alien sound that sent shivers down my spine. "Now you are mine." I didn't understand. "What do you mean?" I couldn't leave you there. "You were hurt," she smiled, revealing sharp, needle-like teeth. "You have bound yourself to me, human. By bringing me here, to this sacred place, you have accepted the bond. You are my mate now." "Mate," I choked out, my mind reeling. No, you've got it all wrong. I just wanted to help you. I didn't agree to anything." Her smile widened, and she rose to her feet, her movements eerily fluid. The wound in her side was already closing, the glowing fluid hardening into a scab-like substance. "It is not a matter of agreement. The bond is forged in blood and shadow. You cannot break it, not now, not ever." I backed away, my heart racing. "This is insane. I don't even know what you are." She tilted her head again, her expression almost pitying. "I am Caliph, of the Voidborn. My kind are the keepers of the veil, the guardians of the spaces between worlds. And now, you are part of that world, whether you wish it or not." The ground beneath me shifted, and I stumbled, falling to my knees. The roots of the tree were moving faster now, writhing like serpents. I tried to stand, but something wrapped around my ankle, a root, cold and slimy, pulling me toward the tree. I screamed, clawing at the ground, but it was no use. The roots dragged me closer, their grip unbreakable. Caliph watched me with those unblinking black eyes, her expression unreadable. "Do not fight it," she said softly. "The bond will be easier if you do not resist. Let me go." I shouted, panic surging through me. "I don't want this. I don't want you." Her expression darkened, and for a moment, I thought I saw something dangerous flicker in those endless black eyes. You do not have a choice, she said, her voice cold. The bond is eternal. You are mine, and I am yours. There is no escape. The roots pulled me closer to the tree, and I felt a strange, pulling sensation in my chest, as if something was being drawn out of me. My vision blurred, and the world around me seemed to warp and twist. The clearing faded, replaced by a swirling void of darkness and light, shapes and shadows moving in ways that defied logic. I could hear whispers, faint and indistinct, but growing louder, more insistent. They were in my mind, crawling through my thoughts, filling me with a deep, primal fear. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, it stopped. The roots released me, and I collapsed to the ground, gasping for air. My body felt different, lighter, yet heavier, as if something fundamental had changed. I looked up at Caliph, who was now standing over me, her expression unreadable. It is done, she said. The bond is complete. You are mine, and I am yours. Forever. I wanted to scream, to protest, but the words caught in my throat. Something inside me had shifted, something I couldn't explain. I felt connected to her, in a way that was both terrifying and intoxicating. It was as if a part of me had been tied to her, an invisible thread binding us together. What did you do to me? I whispered, my voice trembling. She knelt beside me, her hand brushing against my cheek. Her touch was cold, yet sent a shiver of warmth through me. I have made you whole, she said. You are no longer just human. You are part of something greater now. Part of me. I shook my head, trying to clear the fog that had settled over my mind. This isn't real. This can't be real. It is, she said simply. And there is no going back. The days that followed were a blur. Caliph stayed by my side, her presence a constant reminder of the bond we now share. I tried to resist, to fight against the connection, but it was no use. The more I struggled, the stronger it became. I could feel her emotions, her thoughts, as if they were my own. It was invasive, violating, yet somehow, comforting. I hated it, but I couldn't deny the strange sense of belonging it gave me. The forest, too, had changed. The trees seemed to watch me, their branches twisting and turning to follow my movements. The shadows were alive, shifting and writhing, filled with unseen things that whispered to me in a language I couldn't understand. The air was thick with the scent of ozone and something else, something ancient and primal. Caliph led me deeper into the forest, to places where the veil between worlds was thin. I saw things there, things that defied explanation. Creatures that were neither human nor animal, but something in between. They watched us with eyes that glowed in the dark, their forms shifting and changing, never staying the same for long. Caliph called them the forgotten, beings that had been trapped between worlds, lost and wandering. They are like us, she said one night, as we sat by a fire that burned with an unnatural blue flame. Bound to the veil, neither here nor there. But we are different. We are whole. We are one. I didn't respond. I couldn't. The weight of what had happened to me was too much to bear. I had lost everything. My life, my identity, my humanity. I was no longer just me. I was part of her, part of this strange, terrifying world. But as the days turned into weeks, something began to change. The bond, once so oppressive, began to feel natural. I could feel Caliph's presence in my mind, her thoughts and emotions blending with mine. It was no longer invasive, but comforting, like a missing piece of myself had been found. I began to understand her, to see the world through her eyes. And in doing so, I began to understand myself. The forest, once so terrifying, became familiar. The whispers in the shadows were no longer menacing, but soothing, like the voices of old friends. The creatures that had once filled me with dread now seemed almost beautiful, their strange, shifting forms a testament to the infinite possibilities of existence. And Caliph, she was no longer just the alien beast woman who had claimed me. She was my other half, the part of me I hadn't known was missing. I could feel her love for me, deep and eternal, and I realized that I loved her too. Not because of the bond, but because of who she was, strong, fierce, and unyielding, yet gentle and kind in ways I hadn't expected. But even as I accepted my new reality, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The bond, while comforting, was also a prison. I was no longer free to be myself, to make my own choices. I was bound to Caliph, to the forest, to the veil between worlds. And I knew, deep down, that there was no escape. One night, as we sat by the fire, I finally found the courage to ask the question that had been haunting me. Caliph, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. What happens if one of us dies? She looked at me, her black eyes reflecting the flickering blue flames. The bond is eternal, she said. If one of us dies, the other will follow. We are one, now and forever. I felt a chill run through me. So, there's no way out. She reached out, her cold hand brushing against mine. There is no need for escape, she said softly. We are together. That is all that matters. I wanted to believe her. I really did, but as I looked into those endless black eyes, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had made a terrible mistake. I had saved her, and in doing so, I had doomed myself. There was no going back, no escape, no freedom. I was hers, and she was mine, forever. The moral of the story is this. Sometimes, the choices we make with the best intentions can lead us down paths we never could have imagined. And once we step onto those paths, there may be no turning back. Be careful what you choose to save, for in saving it, you may lose yourself.